So maybe what's easiest, if you grab a microphone, please, at the very end. There's one here. And if you can please pass it around and introduce yourself and say something about your company, but in just a few sentences, not too much.
Sure. We're Ostrovoc.ru. We're an online travel player for the Russian market. We are focused on hotels only. We're staffed by a team of people from Yandex on the engineering side and heavily from Booking.com on the side of working with hotels. And my background and the background of my co-founder is we worked in Silicon Valley for a long time in the past and now focused on Russia. It's a very, very exciting market with very little competition. Really doesn't exist aside from some of the global players like Booking.com who have in the past not been able to succeed in local markets.
I think I had my marketing part, so I pass it on.
My name is RJ Friedlander, and I'm the founder of a company called ReviewPro. We're based in Barcelona. And what we do is online reputation and social media analytics for hotels. So today what we're doing is aggregating reviews from around the world from nearly 80 online travel agencies and review sites. We're aggregating that information and obviously all the major social media platforms as well. So today we aggregate more than 100 million reviews in 14 languages covering 50 countries. And what we do is we analyze this information, and our client's the hotel. It's a B2B, software as a service business model. And we have, although it says in the book 1,500, now we have over 2,500 clients. And our client is a hotelier that what we offer them is ability to know everything that's being said about their properties online. And basically we believe that reviews today, it's the potential holy grail of understanding guest satisfaction. So what we're doing through quantitative analytics, through what we call the Global Review Index, department indexes, information related to specific channels, we're helping the hotel better understand their client, improve guest satisfaction, and above all, drive revenue growth by responding to what's being said about them across the internet.
Hi, I'm Axel Schmiegelow. I'm a serial entrepreneur from Germany, and I represent itravel on this panel. And itravel has a booth number 6. If you throw in your business card, you can win a trip to South Africa diving with sharks. And that tells you a lot about what we do because we're an experience-based online tour operator. What does that mean? It means that we find it stupid that if you're trying to book a trip online, you have to know where you want to go and you have to know which hotel you want to pick to be able to compare prices. You should be able to say, hey, website, show me all the places I can kite surf next summer. And plus it has to have a spa because my wife hates kite surfing. And it would be good if they were a baby club because I now have a kid. That's how online trip booking should work, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Axel. Hugo? You got one, great.
I test it. Hi, my name is Hugo Burge. I'm CEO of Cheapflights Media. The business was originally founded by Cheapflights, with the Cheapflights brand in the UK in 1996 by a travel journalist. We're now in 8 countries around the world. We're a marketplace for publishing flight and travel deals and lead gen in the flight sector. We have 5 million newsletters. Our main business is now in the UK, America, Canada, Australia, and the rest of Europe. 6 months ago, we purchased Momondo, which is the meta-search leader in the Nordic countries and a great footprint in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and a fast-growing business in Russia.
Hi, my name is Nina Pogossova. I am Managing Director and founder of Travelmenu. We are one of the online travel agents in Russia. Our main angle is travel packages. We are the only guys on the Russian market who do package booking online. On top of it, we also offer 300,000 hotels and 500 airlines, and we do provide best price guarantee for entire product offering. We work with direct consumers and also with travel agents. We have 3,300 travel agents in Russia and Ukraine, work with MGP, which is second biggest travel agency chain for hotel distribution, with leading airlines and informational portals like Mail.ru and Yandex for online distribution. My background is that I went to Harvard Business School, did a couple of projects for Expedia. My business partner, Catherine, she used to work for Last Minute prior to joining Travelmenu.
Hi, I'm Roman Bach. I'm doing marketing at 9 Flats. 9 Flats is enabling travelers to rent out private apartments from other private persons. So we are basically a platform and doing nothing less than bringing a revolution to the hotel industry.
Hi, I'm Friedrich von Scanzoni. I'm representing HolidayCheck International as a managing director. We are Germany's biggest hotel review platform and actually #2 online travel agency.
Great. So what we'll do is we'll have a number of themes that we'd like to discuss. We'll discuss general industry trends. We will discuss the impact of mobile, the impact of social, emerging markets, and anything else that we'd like to discuss. And then afterwards we'll have plenty of time for questions. So with regards to industry trends, what I think is interesting is the role that Google plays in online travel. So Google is not only a marketing channel for businesses like the ones that we have here on the podium, but they're also a competitor now. So one of the questions to you is how much of the traffic that you get is actually coming from search, and how do you feel about having a partner that also competes with you? Maybe I'll open it up to Hugo. And other panelists, please give me your opinions, because the more disagreement we can get here, the better.
I mean, I think Google is the elephant in the room. I think Google is beginning to challenge everybody in a way that definitely concerns everybody, but I think at the same time, it's forcing everybody to think about how you are differentiated, where you get your traffic from. They're a great partner for a long time. They have been the major source of traffic for the travel industry. I think we're very excited to have acquired a business, Momondo, who have relied on TV advertising to build a brand and get traffic directly. So I think that is one way of getting independence from Google is incredibly important. They are transitioning from being a partner into a competitor. I think there are various ways of doing that. In the Cheapflights business, we're investing heavily in newsletters. We have 5 million newsletters. It's a way of getting traffic that's independent of Google. But I think the question for many people is, what will Google's product be like? Google doesn't have a track record of being incredibly successful in all the products it launches. Its initial product for flights and ITA seems strong, but I think that it doesn't at the moment compete with products which are out in the marketplace. It's had a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they just launched that product back in August, essentially, right? Hey, have you seen any impact on your business after they launched that product?
No, we haven't.
I
think we've seen more impact actually from Google in they've spent a lot of time over the last few years transitioning natural search to paid search. So a lot of the design changes they've been doing over the last few years have already been migrating traffic away from the free search positioning into the paid traffic by adding more sponsored positions at the top. So I think businesses have already been beginning to feel some of the pinch from free search over the last few years.
Axel?
I think if we're looking at the space and the role of Google, we have to differentiate between commoditized products, such as flights. Makes a lot of sense for a search engine to be a standard interface to book a commodity like flights. But in terms of how people find places to go and trips to make, there's another big elephant in the room, that's Facebook. People love to share experiences, and they love to do that about travel experiences, one of the top content after music that people talk about. And so there's a lot of ways that you can differentiate and market yourself differently and gain your own user and customer base. You don't have to sort of over-focus the SEO, SEM bit.
Yeah. Great. Serge, I think you were trying to hop in as well. So in your case, it probably would be Yandex, right?
Well,
rather than Google.
One of the advantages of working in our market is the fact that Google is not the market leader, and they're not actually gaining market leadership. So Yandex is the market leader in Russia, and it is much less aggressive about working on getting out of its core business and developing products like this. I mean, they are doing some things like a flight search product, but it's quite different from Google. They try to focus on the quality of the core product. But aside from that, I mean, I would have to agree that for some things like flights, it's much easier to do this. But for example, for hotels, You have to acquire the content, you have to create a lot of information about it, you have to help, at least in our case, we also have to help fulfill the customer's transaction. So, we have a 24/7 call center that supports our consumers. We have a multitude of various payment methods, not just credit cards, that support our consumers. We do things like making sure that our consumers find it easy to get information about visas and get that fulfilled as well. It's not easy to build a good online travel product, despite the fact that it's easy to build just a white label. We have started a year ago, and we have almost 100 people now that are working around the clock, kind of 15-hour days to make sure that we have good inventory, good content, a good product, etc. And it takes a lot of time and effort. You have to go out to, like Malti was saying, you have to go out to a number of long-tail hotels, many of which are not sophisticated. You have to sign them up. You have to maintain the relationship with them. Google or Yandex will be able to provide advertising, but they won't ever be able to put together a full product.
So one of the things to reduce your dependence on Google or Yandex, for example, would be to build your own brand. And one way to build your own brand would be to use TV advertising. So what is your experience with TV? Malta, I know that you have been particularly successful. But what are the top 3 things to look out for if you want to do effective TV advertising in online travel?
Well, first of all, when you start, you always have to think about the commercial. Yeah? I think for online companies, especially when they start, the type of commercial is a bit of a different nature. So what you want is, you want a commercial that really engages people with the website. So you have to sort of find a way how to produce a spot that nicely integrates the website so that people sort of gets attracted to the service and start using it, so that you have like a high conversion from TV to online. Yeah. So that's one, looking after the commercial. Then the other very important factor is to have a technique to analyze the success of TV. Yeah. So you basically air a spot, and then you can see a result on your website. And you need to measure the effects, the immediate effects, the long-term effects, to understand the ROI, and as to understand what are good slots for you, what are good channels, what are good times, where should you advertise. You learn a lot about your target customer if you are able to measure correctly. If you're not able to measure, it's going to be very tough, because then you are blind. You are like an offline advertiser, and that's a competitive advantage that you have as an online, that you are not blind to the effects, to the immediate response of the spots you're airing. So that's 2 things.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
How much TV do you do? Do you spend more on TV than on search, for example, or?
Yes, that's true. We spend about, I think it's twice as much on TV as on search.
That's great. And is there some particular mix that works particularly well? For example, do TV with cheap display?
I'm sorry?
Is there one particular mix that works well in terms of TV, display, search that you found out?
No. You definitely can overdo TV at some point. Yeah. So there's also a certain maximum, but until then we haven't figured a mix that's doing particularly well. The good thing about a mix in general is if you balance things out, you have the highest synergies. Yeah. How do we track the TV? Yeah. Well, we
question was, how do you track it? Got to pass the microphone around. Yeah.
Well, we measure the traffic to our website. Yeah. And then whenever we air a TV spot, we can measure access traffic. So that's like very briefly spoken.
Friedrich. There are quite a lot of factors that could impact that. How can you isolate that as well as you can isolate a SEO or SEM campaign?
Let's park that one for a moment. So, Friedrich, at HolidayCheck, how do you approach customer acquisition?
I mean, there are different ways, but in our core, we're actually an SEO company. So by our reviews, we actually we attract the people on our website. And by our content, they find us via Google and other search engines. So we are traditionally actually not a marketing company, but scaling, of course, by SEM. And since, let's say, 2 years experience TV as well, but on a very low level until now. So we're not experienced as Malta on TV. We're by far not spending more than on an SEM at the moment.
Great. Nina, I think you wanted to say something as well.
You know, just on Google and Yandex in Russia, I actually think that online travel business in Russia is still at very early stages of development, with airlines selling about 7% of their flights online. So in fact, in terms of Google and Yandex, there is just not enough people searching to buy travel online because they're just not used to being able to do that. So in fact, the combination of TV and online advertising works best because you kind of create a culture that you can finally do it, and that culture generates a bunch of clicks, and then you go and buy them. So if we actually look at companies like Avito, which is Russian eBay, OLX, Zapato, La Moda, which are shoe, which are going one step ahead of travel market in Russia, yeah? They obviously show much better combined results of TV and then CPA conversion to online advertising.
Great. So you brought up one interesting point is the suppliers, so the hotel operators and the airlines. There's been a definite trend towards these players wanting to acquire their customers directly, not via OTAs, not via search engines, but directly. So to what extent do you guys think that suppliers in the online travel business can actually disintermediate the OTAs and the search engines? Maybe
well, if I
one.
start
Yeah.
on that, yeah. You know, I actually think a lot of it depends on online travel agents because primarily what we saw traditionally is that you have a lot of city-based chain hotels globally right now in Expedia, Travelocity, Last Minute, in all global players, yeah? And then you have emerging market from Russia, China, Japan, who are actually not looking for middle-class product. They're actually either looking for very high-end or completely low-end. So the online hotel product which is now available is not quite what the consumers are after in mature markets because they want to explore other product, and it's not the price range of what's working in emerging markets. So if online travel agents add villas, high-end, low-end product, and that's why you actually see the emergence of HomeAway and budget hotels and different activity-based. So if they actually do a better job of expanding their product to those kind of niche and more unique experiences, and also try to take high-end and low-end of a tail, then actually they will keep their market shares and expand. If they actually just concentrate going forward on building strong relationship with existing chains and therefore making just more margin on the same properties, then obviously they'll be losing out, because what you see globally is that at the end of the day consumers have a brand loyalty to a specific hotel, be it Sheraton, Marriott or anything, and at some point if that's the only thing that you're offering to your consumer, then they would inevitably always switch to finally going direct to that specific hotel chain.
Can I disagree with that?
Absolutely, go ahead.
I take your points, but there's one thing I don't believe in is that consumers have loyalty to any kind of brand in tourism. I think most of the money that's spent in tourism on branding is wasted money. I've never heard someone say, I had such a great vacation last year, I went to Sheraton hotels. Or I booked it with First Choice. What people care about is the places they go and the experiences they have. And the thing that is broken on the supplier side of the travel industry is that if you're a hotelier today, you have the choice between pest and cholera and yield management. So if you're selling to continental European customers, then you have a bunch of tour operators that are going to take away maybe 40 or 50% of your inventory at a rate that is lower than your rate that you want to have. And then the other half of your inventory, you can try to give it to Expedia, and you can do some of your own marketing. So that gives large chains a strong incentive to get independent of Expedia, which is why most of them are doing a lot of customer retention and a lot of their own marketing and are trying to invest in bonus programs. But all the bonus programs now resemble each other. There's no differentiator. So what hoteliers need now in the industry is you need ways to differentiate the locations. That's something that in traditional marketing means is too expensive to do. You can't start marketing each and every hotel individually on print or on TV or whatever. But with new online tools and with social media and recommendation engines and so forth, suddenly there's an opportunity for a hotelier to say, you know what, we may only have 4 stars instead of 5 because we don't have pay TV, but our hotel is on a cliff. You can watch the ocean come in and you can do awesome sailing trips. And we have a sailing school on our beach. And that's a kind of, that is the future of yield management for hotels, to be able to market more specifically to certain constituencies and be the best hotel for bird watchers in Tennessee, even though you're a super boring 3-star unit.
RJ, this is your business, right? So you work
sure.
with hotels.
No, I think that, I mean, first of all, when it comes to loyalty, if you're talking about business travel, obviously in points and loyalty programs, that's one part of the big part of the market. But what we're seeing is hotels that are using social media across multiple platforms, in some cases, in other cases, using very few platforms, using Facebook, using Twitter, and they're using these platforms in a way to take advantage of the things you're saying, that they're unique. They're unique for specific segments of the travel sector, and they're successfully using and engaging with their customers in a way that their customers are going out and promoting them and helping them to create opportunity that a few years ago would have been impossible. I mean, the amount of money they would have had to spend for SEM or other things, and the possibility for doing TV would have never been possible for them. So they're leveraging these new platforms in a way it's having huge successes. And the exciting thing here is it's not only for the big players that have big budgets and big teams, but we're seeing successes across all segments in terms of size of companies and resources, but also across all segments of, from budget properties all the way up to luxury properties. So,
right. So this is a great segue into the whole topic of social. So maybe each of you can talk just a few sentences about what you've done in social, how it's worked for you. And one of the meta questions for me is, I've always wondered, why is there not a social version of TripAdvisor yet? It seems to make ultimate sense, but nobody has been able to make something like that work. Why do you think that is? So tell me a bit about what you do, and maybe an answer to the question that's overarching this.
So for us, Russia is quite different, again, from other economies in that you have the 3 leading social networks are not Facebook. Facebook is actually number 4 in the country, and it's not gaining. And that's kind of repeats a trend across all of the Russian businesses, that foreign businesses are not successful in Russia. But that presents an opportunity to do a lot of things in a unique way to those different social networks. And what we do is we advertise on social networks, and then we really actively promote ourselves through a variety of social actions, things like competitions, things like essentially viral mechanisms that where we track how to get consumers to share our products on Facebook, on the other social networks, on Twitter, on things like that. And then the good thing is that we actually see conversion rates from social networks are higher than from search advertising, and it's cheaper. So we do see that that's where the future is, and a lot of the players that are leading the market today globally are not very good at it because they've grown up with Google and they've optimized all of their processes for Google, and they don't fully understand this as of yet.
Great. So maybe Roman.
I would like to comment a few points.
All right.
I strongly believe in brand building in our social travel model, definitely, because we only started in February. So we are a very young, fresh company. And we have only 25,000 accommodations, so less than, for example, the Hilton Group. But I never see consumers on Facebook or Google really engaging with the Hilton brand and saying how great it was and what a wonderful stay they had. They do this with 9Flash. They really engage with Facebook, with Twitter, report about their trips. They rate the rooms which they rented from other persons. And it's not only about having an extra couch or having a kitchen where you can make meals for your children and everything. It's about those soft facts, about not having a concierge, which is just like giving you your key and saying, hey, second floor, and if you want to have something to eat, go to our restaurant. But meeting local people, getting local knowledge. It's really about having a friendly host telling you, the next supermarket is around the corner, 2 streets far away, you have a great restaurant. And if you need anything, call me anytime. And after your stay, we'll stay in touch through Facebook. So social is really, really a driver. And when you have such a model, brand building becomes much more important. I mean, for like a search engine, low, cheap travel search, of course you will not say, oh, I booked a great flight with some brand. But you just try the process every time again. When you travel with 9 Flats, you don't say, hey, I stayed in London with John Doe, but you said, hey, I stayed in London, I booked a trip via 9 Flats, it was great, the host was nice. So the platform in our case is the brand and is creating the buzz and building trust.
Makes ultimate sense. Hugo, it's very difficult to make social work in the context of search, right? What is your experience here?
We've experimented, but I think where consumers really want to use social is where experiences are involved, and I think suppliers have a natural advantage in that respect. I mean, I think social has had an enormous impact on hotels. The hotel landscape and online travel is completely transformed by the social element. Nobody would look at buying a hotel now without looking at reviews. I mean, it's a given. But I think for other areas of the industry in search and OTAs and intermediaries, I think it is much harder to build a genuine social experience that's incredibly meaningful and transformative for the brand. I think where I'm most impressed is by niche companies or small companies who are able to build a very loyal base by their energy and enthusiasm and getting people to connect with something that's sort of unknown or unheard of. But I think for bigger brands, it's much harder to do social well. Sure, you can do competitions.
What do you think has been particularly successful in using social?
Well, I look at small companies like Cruise Compare. I mean, that is a small site, but it's very focused. I think there are other small companies. Actually.
You know, one company that I know of, it's Intrepid. It's kind of explorative travel globally. You go to Peru travel and Ecuador, etc. And most of their clients actually, they come from social networks. If we are talking about Russia, then it's Cheap Trip. It's actually offline company. And they kind of hunt for best deals, and they have about 65,000 users, and actually all of their deals are gone like 10 minutes after they're published. So it's very loyal consumer based, and it's all very active because we know that as soon as there is something, it will be gone like before you know. So they're highly engaged. But when it comes to Expedia, Travelocity, and bigger guys, it's very product, not consumer-centric companies. It's very difficult just to say you have another voucher for a specific hotel for £10 or for anything. So they're not doing that well. So usually social works really well for very boutique, unique experiences.
Friedrich, what's your experience?
We always forget about a very old company. It's like Virtual Tourist, but bought a couple of years ago by Google, which is really actually the most active travel community in the world, I think, in my perspective, very old. And it's very rare that you really have people interacting on travel in this. And I think the problem with this travel and social is that actually most of the people are not traveling all the time. I mean, they are traveling twice a year. So, I mean, there is nothing to communicate between your summer trip and your winter trip. And so in the mass market, it's really complicated to keep up like social discussions or community discussions within people who are just traveling twice a year. Yeah, I mean, it's not like us. I mean, I'm traveling, twice a week, so I can discuss about this. But in the mass market, it's different.
I would have to really disagree with the whole story about smaller suppliers being able to do social better than large suppliers or intermediaries. It really comes down to the same story as with search advertising. You have to do detailed analytics. You have to constantly optimize your product. You have to constantly optimize your landing page because maybe changing the color of that button where it says that you should like this page is going to increase the conversion by 10%. We have a bunch of math PhDs from the best math programs in Russia and people who won kind of programming Olympiads, etc., that are just building analytics systems to make sure that we can track all of this and constantly optimize it. You have to constantly improve. You don't just get a good product because you're a really good designer. I mean, unless you're Steve Jobs or someone like that. You do it by constantly analyzing. And the brands, even like the big brands, like Hilton or Intercontinental, they don't really know how to do this. They're not online marketing companies. They don't know how to do this. That's the reason that OTAs are successful. We know how to market product, how to constantly improve it online, how to make our websites more usable, and how to get the consumer to do what we want and deliver them with a better experience.
Great. Hey, RJ, you have been in the business of the review for many years. How has the role of the review changed over time from a consumer's perspective and from a supplier's perspective?
Right, sure. Starting with the consumer perspective, consumers have always based their decisions of what hotel they go to and, more importantly, how much they're willing to pay based on information from others. It used to be travel agents. It used to be their friends. And today that's happening through social media. So we're not talking about a change in concept. We're just talking about a more efficient way to do what they've always done, right? So what we've seen, the consumer confidence and the absolute number of consumers, the segment of consumers that are today using social media to make their decision not only what hotel to go to, but how much you're willing to pay, the numbers have just absolutely skyrocketed. Today, depending on the study, you look at between 65 and most studies are above 85% of consumers, they're basing their decision on the hotel that they go to based on opinions of people like us, right? So the influence is grown significantly. It's also having a direct impact on what they're willing to pay, right? So from the consumer standpoint, the evolution has been very, very quick over the last couple of years. From the hotel standpoint, we've also seen a huge evolution and a very, very quick evolution of how they're valuing and the importance they're placing on what started out to be about listening, right? Social media, we always used to talk about listening, but it's really not about listening. I mean, you've talked continually about analytics. You've talked about analytics. What we're finding is today hotels realize that it starts with listening, but what you have to do is you have to be able to analyze what are your consumers saying about your product on a hotel level, on a group level, on a brand level. What are they saying in general? But more importantly, what are they saying in detail about departments? So we're doing these types of things with quantitative analytics. We've developed a semantic analysis engine that works across multiple languages. So we give the hotels today the ability not only to know what are people saying in the point scores, because oftentimes someone will say, you go to the Landmark Hotel in London, 5 out of 5 in TripAdvisor. But then they start to write about what's going on, their experience, and they get into the famous but. But the restaurant wasn't what I expected. So the hotels realize today they have to be listening and tracking their point scores because this is impacting how they rank in the OTAs. But they also have to be listening to the details because these details have a direct impact on operations and they have a direct impact on how they have to respond to be meeting and exceeding expectations. So what we're seeing is a tremendous evolution on both sides. The last point that I'll make is today what's sexy to talk about in social media is it's Foursquare, it's Twitter, it's Facebook. But where the action is and where the money is today, it's in review sites, right? So when consumers are going through the buying decision, they're consulting numerous sources, they're spending, in many cases, hours and hours deciding where they're going to go. But what has the biggest impact on their final decision, not only of hotel but price, is what they're reading across these hundreds of OTAs. So again, the sexy part is Twitter and Facebook and Foursquare, but the part that's really impacting the business is the review sites. And so those are things we're seeing as key trends.
Great. Let's switch tags and let's talk about mobile. What businesses of yours have implemented mobile so far? So maybe tell me a bit, how much of your traffic comes from mobile? What have you done? What has worked? What has not worked?
I mean, we haven't done so much, so we have actually at the moment an iPhone app and we are working on an Android app.
we have a mobile optimized website as well. So I mean the amount of traffic is fast growing what we're getting over mobile, but it's in relation to the normal websites we have, it's still very small. For us, it's at the moment we try everything what we can do in this area. It's with no commercial background at the moment actually. So we are experimenting with it. We don't have any conversions on it on the website at the moment on the mobile applications. So we will see how this will develop. I think if you're a hotel-only player, maybe then it's much more important. We are much more into packages, and I'm not really sure if you have in the long run like a buying decision on your mobile for packages. Yeah? I mean, we will enable this at a certain point, but let's see.
Yeah. So for example, what we see at Kayak is that lots of people are searching on mobile. So a large proportion of our searches come from mobile. But there's a lower proportion of people who actually purchase, because purchasing via mobile is still difficult for certain products. Now, there are products, of course, where you don't have to prepay, right? Sometimes it's post-pay. So tell me a bit about your experience there.
You know, I was actually wanting to add on mobile technologies. World Travel Market is happening in London right now, and actually Euromonitor had entire presentation on mobile. And they're saying that even though there is a lot of hype about mobile right now, it's actually less than 0.5% of total bookings, and most of the bookings are done via mobile if something went wrong with your initial travel plans, flights got cancelled, or there is like overnight, and it's very last minute, pretty much immediate check-in. So people are looking for where to stay closest to station X, and then they just book over telephone and then go. So obviously a lot of that market share is definitely in flights and hotels, and definitely not in packages, because packages are not booked like ad hoc just 2 hours before travel usually.
All right, Axel?
Yeah, so I think you have to differentiate the transaction of commoditized products, such as HRS hotel booking and flight booking. We currently have 4% of our traffic coming from iOS devices, and this is before we launch the app, which we're launching today and you see on the screen now, which shows you a bit, and we're proud to announce it at NOAH. Thank you very much, Marco, for this opportunity. It's actually going to be available in the store only in December. So what you can see here is how you can book a trip in an inspirational way. So let's say I'm interested in going to the West USA, and I also want to go to Hawaii. So I'll go to Hawaii, I'll add Hawaii, create my trip here, and you might notice that I haven't been asked yet, my travel details or the number of people traveling or when I want to travel, all the kind of stuff I get asked in an internet booking engine. I'm not being asked this now. Right now, all I'm considering is nice pictures and great places that I can look at. This is a flipboard type of experience. Oh, hang on, there's a nice round trip to the West Coast. That's interesting. Let me see some details. Oh yeah, cool. Maybe I'll do that. So I'll pick this, just add it here, and that's a great thing. And then perhaps in Hawaii, let's see what I can do in Hawaii. So I'll pick one of those hotels. I'll take the 2-island trip. But I don't only want to sleep on my vacation. I want to have some great experiences. So I'll select some activities, and this is the part that you don't do in traditional websites. So a big island helicopter ride, that sounds like a good idea. So I'll do that. But I want to do more. Maybe I want to jet ski. And after I've picked out these components of my trip, and of course I can slide back and forth with my, how long I want to spend, how much time I want to spend in each destination. That's when I start putting in my details. And when I've put in my details, I can either decide to book it immediately, that's up there right under the price, and save $100 off of the total price, or I can do something very interesting in the lower corner, which is find friends who have already been there and ask them for tips and ask them what, if they can have any recommendations and stuff to do. I can watch my trip in motion, and here the last part, coming back to what you were saying, Harry, about conversion. If I'm queasy about booking $2,950 on a mobile device, maybe I want to talk to an agent, so I can speak to the agent and click here, or send an email and get a response. And I think if we want to see conversion on mobile devices, we have to think about the situations that consumers are in when they are booking mobile? How can you cater to that situation? I want to talk to my partner. I want to know more about the trip. I want to maybe get an answer to a question that I have around that trip. As soon as travel companies do that well, we're going to see lots of conversion mobile. So thanks for the opportunity to demo this, and I'm proud to do that at NOAH.
Great. Serge, do you have a mobile offering as well?
Yeah, so we're really early in the process, but initially our sense was also that there's not a lot of booking happening and this is hype, but we looked at some of the trends and some of our investors, Accel and General Catalyst, have really encouraged us to look into this because they've been seeing some trends with Kayak of a lot of search activity and some booking activity starting to happen. And we've realized that, you know, that's true. Today, there's not a lot of booking activity happening there quite yet, but the person who is going to build an excellent product and over the next several years going to improve it is going to be in a good position to be able to exploit it when booking does go mobile. So for us, we've just decided to make the investment. We've recruited someone who was the lead designer on the most used mobile applications in Russia on Yandex Maps and Yandex Mail, and just told them, okay, here's here's a budget. You go and build a really, really good product. We will keep putting it out into the market. We will keep promoting it, seeing what the user response is, keep enhancing it, and there will come a time in the future when the bookings will start to go. And I think that I really agree with you about the fact that you have to think about the context where users are going to be needing the product. For myself and for a number of other people who we've interviewed about this is really about last minute. So it is about that time when you're in London at a conference and suddenly you realize that you want to stay until tomorrow, not leave today. And that's where you don't have internet access. You don't want to look at hotels in general. You want to look at those that are available tonight, that are near you, near the conference event. And that's where the mobile really, really shines, because you have to develop around that context. So I agree with that completely.
So one of the troubles with search is that you can do search on mobile perfectly. But then when you click through to a supplier, you end up on some crappy mobile site where you actually cannot book. So some people actually try and solve that problem by allowing people to book on a search site as well. What are your plans there, Hugo? Because you must be running in exactly the same problem. Great mobile experience on your site, but as soon as you hand people off to a supplier, they get lost.
I think that's right. I mean, we're seeing an enormous growth in mobile searches. It's gone from 6% last year to around 10% now, so it's becoming very material. We've experimented with a few different formats, and we've learned what people are looking for, and we weren't giving them the right thing before. So we're a bit behind the game, but we're now confident we're developing the right things. Momondo have launched an app that is getting great, terrific engagement, is getting a lot of searches, but again, the bookings aren't following through. I think we're reliant upon suppliers and partners having good mobile booking experiences, and so far they haven't focused on that, but I think that's changing rapidly. We now have partners who are starting to ask for mobile bookings, and some people are able to take advantage of that. So I think where the eyeballs start, the bookings will follow.
Great. So let's switch topics. Let's talk about emerging markets. So Nina, Russia, how big will it be and how long will it take?
Okay. So in terms of Russia, the Russian travel outbound market right now is at 48 billion, and it's going to be 68 billion by 2015 by Euromonitor and World Travel Market reports. It's actually growing much faster than developed market economies. It's growing at about 8% annual as opposed to about 3 to 4% growth globally. In terms of where India and China started, we expect the Russian market to go from about, across all product categories, it's about 3.5 to 4% online right now to about 35 to 40% online within the next 5 years.
How big is the largest OTA in Russia now? Just ballpark. Is that hundreds of millions? Is it billions?
It's hundreds of millions, and actually the way the online travel markets always kind of develop, First guys who go are airlines direct. Then you have consolidators of airlines, then you have hotels, and then you have online travel agents picking up in terms of package bookings and hotels and flights and other things. Consolidators. So in terms of consolidators for flights, the leading companies are OnlineTravel and Anywhere Any Day, and they're doing about 200 million turnover annual, which is a very good indication for online travel agents to start development. So the way actually Russia is very different to foreign markets is that it's very package dominated, like Germany, England, Japan, China. 85% of leisure travel is coming through package. It's very dominated by tour operators who own entire verticals. So they actually own charter airlines or are working with Aeroflot, Transair for their transportation. They own or actually have exclusivity rights for hotels for Russian market, and they own domestic management companies on locations like Turkey, Thailand, Egypt, main destinations for Russian travelers. So in terms of your previous question on packages and how that's different, the packages are pretty much online everywhere. It's just a question of who is distributing the packages. What you see in Germany and UK, that most of the packages are distributed via TUI and Thomas Cook because they actually own all destinations, and it actually makes sense to client to consolidate with them because they can travel through TUI to Egypt now and then go to Thailand later. And actually Expedia is very much in packages in European markets. Actually, if you go to Expedia Germany, then the pre-selected filter button will be on packages because that's where they see their main opportunity for growth for the next 5 years. And UK is actually working on moving more to package. The main problem for Expedia right now is a lot of people think that if they press on button package, they will somehow end up on combination which is hotel plus flight, because that's initially how the brands were positioned, that you actually create your own travel. So Germany is already in the mood when people are picking up at package booking via Expedia in Germany, and UK is pretty much heading that way as well. If you look at Eastern European markets, which are more developed than Russia, but at the same time they're smaller in size, so they're not like top 10 outbound travel markets globally. Thomas is actually here from MCI, and in Poland, Travel Planet, the leading online travel agency, is booking 65% of their stock through travel packages. And another investment that MCI has, it's Czech Republic, Nivea, leading company, 95% of their bookings are actually in packages.
Right. So Serge, emerging markets, Russia, fantastic growth, obviously challenges. What are the key challenges that you need to overcome in Russia?
Well, I think that the key challenge is just that you're coming into an industry that's really evolving very, very quickly, and you have to keep up with it. That's really the key opportunity, because there's very little competition, and there's on the side of the local players, there's very little understanding of how to build a business properly, how to build your marketing in a data-driven way, how to focus, how to run an excellent engineering team, how to build the right team, how to attract capital. So because most local players are having troubles attracting capital from global investors, and if you're able to do that, that's an advantage. And for global players, on the other hand, they really don't have a good understanding of a lot of local nuances, like local marketing, the fact that the channels are different. They have to, instead of advertising on Google or on Facebook, they have to advertise on Yandex, Vkontakte, Odnoklassniki, etc. So that's a massive opportunity. As far as packages versus independent travel, it's true that packages are a significant portion of the market right now, but it's definitely going off into separate, frequent, independent travel with a significant degree of speed. And this is actually something that we've seen that's similar to most of the other emerging markets. If you look at China, which has a lot of similarities with Russia, packages don't sell online. They get sold in offline stores, and that business is dying. slowly but surely. Whereas the companies that have been extremely successful in those emerging markets, the C-Trip in China, Make My Trip, Yatra and Clear Trip in India, Decolar and Viajanet in South America, they've all focused on flights and hotels, and actually the most successful ones have been the ones that focused on hotels, because it's obviously a higher margin business. I'd say the main challenge is just figuring out very quickly how to be local, how to outperform the global competitors that have money, that have inventory, but that don't understand how to market to local consumers, how to make them happy, and how to develop inventory that's locally relevant. And in terms of outperforming the domestic consumers, you just build the best team, you raise the largest amount of capital, and you win. It's not too difficult.
Great. So why don't we... Oh, sorry, Friedrich.
Just one comment on it, maybe on as we are expanding at this moment in Western Europe and in Eastern Europe. So it's, I think we overestimated a little bit the market sizes we really have in Eastern Europe. So in Poland and in Russia, what we see right now, or like the growth rates are great. But like compared like to build up a scalable, fast-growing business as we can do it, for example, even in France with high competition, I think it's still difficult. Yeah, it's really technical infrastructure is not as well. It's very offline-driven. I mean, it's not by accident that actually like the two biggest OTAs in Poland are actually building up now offline activities. Yeah, I mean they have like travel agencies on the streets. So it's, they see that the online business in Poland and Russia is just limited to a certain extent at the moment. Yeah? I mean, for us it's an important investment, and we strongly believe in these markets. But compared to even like high competitive Western European markets you have, the scalability is not by far not there.
But that's the same. That was the same situation as in China, in India. In China, C-Trip has spent a number of years having couriers show up to pick up the customer's cash at the customer's apartment to be able to process a transaction. And that's perfectly normal. And today, C-Trip is a company that's worth, what, $8–9 billion? And processing, despite the fact that they're still doing a lot of this locally relevant stuff. They process something like 80% of their transactions over the phone through their call center. And all that is not that the market is bad, it's that the local players know how to deal with these things and others don't. You have to adapt to the market, not to say that the market isn't good.
I didn't want to say that the market is bad. I think it's just, we are just waiting when the market really is coming online. And this can be tomorrow or next year, so I'm sure it will come, but right now
you shouldn't be, I mean, one of the reasons that, for example, C-Trip has won in China versus Elong, which got bought by Expedia, is that Elong said, okay, we're going to push consumers online because that's the way it should be. And C-Trip said, you know what? The consumers decide what it should be. It's not that we are much smarter and we are going to say, okay, we will wait until the consumers come online. We're going to build a solution that's right for the consumers today, and as the consumer requirements evolve, we'll go and evolve with them.
Great. Nina?
Yeah, just to add to that, as to Russian and Eastern European markets, I actually think that the only emerging market that went through the online much faster than any other emerging market was definitely India. And I think it's partly due to the fact that actually a lot of travel content is primarily generated and distributed in English language. So, and India obviously could just benefit from it because they didn't have to translate to any other language. So any way it's somehow different in terms of picking up the trends is definitely just sourcing the content, because we right now have about 300,000 hotels. Obviously not all of them are in Russian. And the reviews that we are sourcing from TripAdvisor are not exactly the reviews for the destinations that Russians like to travel to. So obviously we need to translate more data and get some local reviews in, which will be more time consuming. But other than that, if you take Brazil, China, Asia and Russia, they are showing pretty much the same trends in terms of how fast it goes. To the point that Sergey made on Chinese packages, it's actually incorrect. And actually, if you look at how packages are positioned in Eastern Europe and Japan and China, they actually, you do see the slight shift from packages in terms of percentages to FIT travel, to shorter, to kind of new destinations, because the way it works in Japan, China, Russia, Poland, everywhere, is that you have, say, 3 Russians trying to go to Dominican Republic, and that's in FIT travel. So they usually travel to London, then they take another flight to Dominican Republic. As soon as the destinations pick up, then actually tour operators just create direct flights, and they actually take commitments on hotels, and that pretty much becomes a package destination. So what you do see is that FIT is growing because the total market share of travelers are growing, and then you see a lot of new destinations which are starting through FIT combination, which is hotel plus flight combination, which then translate to package destination 2 to 3 years later after they launch. And actually, in terms of China and Japan, they are both more successful in traditional packages sold online than actually FIT sold online.
Thank you. So we'll switch to questions. So please come up to the microphone. Give me your name, company that you're from, and maybe the panelists who you'd like to ask the question to.
My name is Alex. Wow, that's loud. My name is Alex. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Smava, P2P lending service, and I have a question actually to all of the panelists with regard to how, first of all, they look on companies like abindenurlaub.de from Unister, which has built a very strong position in the German marketplace. And second, Harry, I think there's one company who's actually doing social with TripAdvisor. That's gogobot.com. Which recently got funding. I just wanted to see how the panelists regard that company. So.
Okay, who would like to take the question?
As far as Gogobot, it's a great company. It's, you know, they're integrating things like Facebook Connect and social in general into reviews much faster than, you know, TripAdvisor should be doing. It's probably going to be either successful or it will be, or TripAdvisor will copy a lot of what they're doing. But it's definitely where reviews should go, because the key factor in reviews is trust. And what social does is it enables trust.
Friedrich? Yeah, I think.
Just about this Unister question, I'm not really sure what you mean by, you know, our opinion on this. I mean, Unister Group is actually our core competitor in Germany. They are slightly bigger than us in packages and actually our only competitor in this area. I mean, they scaled over the last year tremendously and did a great job.
Yeah,
Axel?
so I think if you look at Unister and those companies, they're basically the traveltainment world. So what they're selling is they're selling standard travel on price. And I said earlier that we don't believe that pure price comparison is the future of what we should be doing in online travel. In terms of Gogobot, there's a number of companies that are trying to change the way you interact with travel. Trippy was launched at TechCrunch, Disrupt, with sort of recommendation-based trip planning. All these companies show that there's a vast need for this kind of interaction. From a venture perspective, the only issue that many of these businesses will encounter is that basically they're adding a lot of value to the decision-making process, but economically their business is a lead generation business because they earn commissions off of trips of hotel accommodations that they sell. And that doesn't give you a lot of top-line revenue. It's a tough business to be in. Our approach is different because, and that's why we're an online tour operator and not an online tour travel agency, because we actually purchase the hotels. We get net rates from the hotels and we have the top-line revenue, which also means that we own the customer relationship, and which also means that we use a lot of potential in CRM, and CRM is another great aspect of travel that is completely unharnessed. Even very large travel companies aren't capable of recognizing you if you book for the third time with them. So it's very interesting. It shows that there's an innovation in the space. Social innovation is happening, but it's ultimately about how you can marry that better interaction for the consumer with a business model that will give you the power to bring that forward and harness it on a strategic level.
RJ?
This particular side I'm not familiar with, but the things that we're seeing is that over the last couple of years in the hotel sector, there was a lot of effort towards competing on price, right? So over the last year or so, the market started to pick up, and what's happened is a lot of hotels they're undervaluing their own product, but the problem is it's very difficult for them to quantify that. So what we're seeing hotels doing is taking, for example, our global review index and doing crosstabs or analyzing that in relation to their average daily rates. And what they're seeing is they're identifying opportunities. And again, this is across multiple different categories and segments. But what they're seeing is that consumers oftentimes, through guest feedback, value their property more than they were, and able to use analytics to increase, in fact, their profitability. So. Again, sorry, I'm not familiar with that company, but,
right.
but definitely the analytics is being used to help to drive decisions like this and optimize.
Great, that's helpful. Great. Next question, please. Maybe there.
Hi, Petra Friedman from HolidayCheck. If you are working in tour operating, online travel, etc., reviews, what is your view on holiday rentals? Is this an opportunity for you in your world or a threat, or how do you see this in the future?
Yeah, I think that's for Roman, right? Roman, take it away.
Hi, thank you for asking this question. I mean, what we are actually doing is bringing holiday rentals to the cities and change the experience from these last century approach of you have to arrive on a Saturday and you have to leave from on a Friday to a more flexible approach, more consumer oriented. That's basically, yes, we like holiday rentals a lot.
It was more a question to the others who are not dealing with rentals.
I think the exciting thing about companies like 9 Flats is that it's, again, the fact that they get so much traction shows that people want to have authentic experiences when they travel. They want to really be in a place, have personal interaction. They don't want to go to commoditized hotels that are all the same, and you get pulled over the table anyway. You pay too high a price for a standardized offering. So that's what it shows. And of course it takes a chunk out of the market, because someone who's going to spend a night in a houseboat in Amsterdam is not going to spend a night in a hotel in Amsterdam. But at the same time, it raises the awareness of people that travel is not about going once in the winter and once in the summer. It's about making short trips, having great experiences, and that's the opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, I think for us, especially given the low sophistication of hotels in our market, at long tail, the interesting thing is that it's actually not completely clear where hotels end and apartment rentals or house rentals begin. So the main question is really, it seems to be an opportunity. The main question is connectivity, and how do you get the inventory in a real-time fashion to deliver it to your customers and sell it in a way similar to selling a hotel.
Okay, great. We have time for 2 more questions, and then we're going to finish up. So there's one in the middle, a lady who's been trying to ask a question for a while.
Thank you. Hi. I'm Karen von Gabowiecki, working in venture capital. So my question would be, what do you think in your key geography you're looking at the moment? What are the 1 or 2 bottlenecks that you think you're going to be facing in the next years? Is it potentially in the emerging markets, because the majority is offline still in the travel industry? Is it because people also don't really have a lot of faith in credit cards or don't like to purchase online? Is it their behavior? So what do you think are the main 1 or 2 points?
Actually, the number 1 bottleneck is hiring lots of good engineers. So just about every problem that you're facing on product, on analytics, on working with better inventory is a problem of having more engineers that are working in a good way and that are building products that improve improve things. So, for us, it's a bit easier in Russia to do that because there's less competition for them and there's a lot of high quality talent. But still, you need a lot of technical talent to be able to build great products.
Great, thanks, Friedrich.
For us, for all European markets except Germany, it's like connectivity to suppliers. I mean, it's a pain all over. I mean, we have coming from a German experience with Traveltainment, and there's a problem that's just solved, but in whole Europe and all other countries, it's not solved yet. So it's connectivity for us.
Great. One more question, and then we'll finish up. I think we're done. So, panelists, thank you very much for joining us today. And we're on to the next section. Thanks very much.